right, I'm going to erase. All right, guys, let's get our voices off, get settled in. You can hear my throat is still destroyed. I'm still not recovered from whatever cold all the way, so. No, all right. A few things. I want to tell you about the test that we have at the end of this unit. It is 10 class periods from now, Unit 3 exam. There's 2 sections. Guys, 2 sections on that Unit 3 exam. The first section will be the one that you guys are writing about the books we're reading. Ideally, you read the whole thing by then, because realistically, to be on track, you should read the whole thing by around that time. If you are way behind, get going. It's going to be 30 questions, 20 minutes, open book, open note about the books you're reading. Students are writing those test questions. If you are the one that wrote the question and put on the test, you get it automatically counted correct on the test. So you can get credit for it, even if you don't have to, and you won't have to answer it. The next thing, the second portion of that test, the written portion, because I love doing written portions. I will hand you one of these essays that we're working on every day in class, where I give you the starting and ending paragraphs, and you have to research and find the connection. I will give you one of those on test day, and you will have approximately 70 minutes to research and write it. It'll be open note, so you can bring in notes. It'll be from any one of these these that we've covered so far, or through the end of this unit. So be prepared for that. Know how to do the essays. Starting next week, so that'll be Tuesday, we're going to go from groups of 4 to groups of 3. We're going to do groups of 3 for about 2 weeks, and then we'll do groups of 2. So you'll have to do this essay as pairs, and then you'll have 1 or 2 times to do it as a single individual before you do the test to find out, can you do this? Do you have the logic capacity and the ability to research and connect ideas that quickly to do it by yourself and be prepared for the test? All right, so we're going to slowly pare down the group size until you are doing this project individually in class. I need you to take it seriously and not rely on the smartest person in your group to do the work for you, because otherwise you're just going to get hammered. All right, so that's our test we have at the end of this unit. That is, it'll be the second week of December. All right, second week of December. That is a month and 1 week. Should be like the 10th or 11th. Yeah. I've always had this tattoo. It's my wife. Yeah. All right. Sort of, yeah. All right, let's keep on going. Unit 3, day 3.
Save me. Day 4.
Oh, day 4. Thank you for the correction. Appreciate that. All right. And I wasn't being sarcastic. I do appreciate that. All right. We're talking about Ruth. What's today's date? 11/5/25. All right. So the book of Ruth takes place during the Judges. Takes place during events of Judges. Events of Judges. All right. This is one of those books that sometimes gets overlooked, or it gets really, really loved and you spend way too much time on it. It's what happened to me in seminary. My graduate Hebrew professor loved this book. It was his favorite book. He loved it so much that he made his students in our first year of Hebrew, or our first semester of Hebrew, we had to translate this like 4 or 5 times from Hebrew to English. It was terrible. I ended up failing the class, and it has made me a little bit antagonistic towards the book of Ruth. But the book of Ruth has incredible value, all right? Even though it's little, it has incredible significance both theologically and textually. So I want to walk us through the two major ways, or 2 ways to analyze and care about Ruth. All right. I want to say this. These are not the only 2. But these are the 2 that we have done in our class. We'll keep doing in our class. And they're not opposing views, but they're going to prioritize different things. So if you should still be taking notes, not just of what I'm writing, but of more things than that, right? They're prioritizing different things. And I think they end up teaching us that different things are important. So the first is what we call the textual analysis, or you could say textual or historical analysis. So loud and crazy. Textual or historical analysis. Another word for this is historical criticism. I'm not going to go way into that. The scholarly term for it is historical criticism. It's what I like. I don't always use that word in here because it sounds scary because you just assume I'm criticizing and being negative on it. Doesn't mean you're being negative about the Bible. You're using critical thinking skills, the information around it to understand and interpret. You're interpreting something in light of the text and the history. Right? That's what we're going to be doing on this. So looks at passage, looks at structure, background, and history to find meaning. All right. So this is what I think is neat, and when we look at the book of Ruth, I'm going to talk for a while about this section, mostly because I'm biased towards liking this section. All right, I love this stuff. This is what I'm into. This is the nerdy side of me. It's also worth noting that we get some disagreement because of this when it comes to the book of Ruth. All right, I put in today's paragraph that it can be seen as patriarchal. Who knows the term patriarchy or patriarchal or patriarch? Nobody knows what a patriarchy is? All right, it is something that leans towards preference for males, right? This is structured and created. This method of studying the Bible was created by white German dudes in the 1800s. So guess who typically is better at this, prefers it, and is taught to do this? White dudes. And I'm going to tell you guys a secret. It might not be obvious. I'm a white guy. All right? I know, that's shocking.
You're white?
I know.
You're white, mister?
Believe it or not, I'm a white millennial. I love textual criticism, right? This stuff leans towards not looking, we don't always look at the value of the women in the text. We're looking usually from a male perspective, all right? This stuff has a male perspective assumed and in mind. And if you're taking notes, that's a good thing to have a note of. A male perspective is usually assumed and in mind. Usually there's a preference towards male in anything patriarchal. And historical criticism, admittedly, has this. This is why a lot of us like this. We're not looking at the women in the text so much as we're just looking at the text and ignoring everything else. Yeah. This? That's a 1. This is a parentheses. Oh, this all says that you're behind because you were on your computer while I lectured.
You can sit
No, that's very readable. Yeah, just move over here. All right. So, preferred, given preference. All right. According to this way of reading it, Ruth is political history or folklore meant to give legal right of kingship to David as a Moabite. As I'll explain all of this in a moment, so keep your notes ready. Once you get this down, you ready for more notes? This way of reading this is going to look at this and say, the book of Ruth is political writing. It's a political text all about politics. The goal of it is to justify that even though King David, we all know who David is, he killed Goliath, right? David is a big deal king. Jesus fulfills the promise given to David, so he's probably pretty important. David is a giant guy in the Bible. He is probably a Moabite. A Moabite, Moabite, they're not legally allowed to be king of Israel because they're not Israelites. They're seen as second-class people. So the book of Ruth, according to this perspective, is all about political writing meant to justify and explain why David is in fact allowed to be king. Right? It's about the guy here. It's about, well, David is the king, and we're going to use these characters to get there, but our goal is not Ruth. Our goal is justifying and explaining why David would otherwise, something that David otherwise wouldn't be allowed to do. Yes? Moabite. Moabite. It's a nation of people. Moabite. All right. Ariana, I know you just got back in, but I got to erase this top. Sorry. All right.
Who said that? Who said that?
Here's what we need to do. I'm going to keep explaining this. I want to explain how it is that Ruth is a political text, why we assume this. All right, but we have to know this concept. It's called the kinsman redeemer. Kinsman redeemer, and a student taught me this term this morning. She was researching in the Anchor Bible Dictionary, found this. It helped her writing. I'm going to put a dash here. Levirate law. This is the actual term for this thing. The levirate law. I didn't know this until the student this morning researched. Very proud of her, very excited that she was able to find something and teach it to me. So, the levirate law, a way of redeeming, and I'm going to put in parentheses, giving value and salvation, or value and sanctification. Redeeming to a widow.
My goodness, what did I say?
The property. What does what say? Sanctification. Hold on. This one? All right, I'm going to redo this because that was bad handwriting. All right. Here's the deal. In ancient times, women are not usually considered as great as males. That's just the reality. We have to accept that. We don't have to like it, but we have to accept that that's what the case used to be. If a woman doesn't have a way of providing for herself outside of having a husband. So what happens if her husband dies? What's going to happen to her?
She technically dies too.
She's going to suffer, right? Yeah, she sort of dies. She gets treated worse. She has to rely on the goodness of others. Now, she has to rely on her sons, her children, to provide for her. One of the things that happens, one of the ways of this happening, is this levirate or law, or the kinsman redeemer law. Kinsman redeemer law, I want you to take note of what it is. It's weird, and we're not going to like it, but they give her to the closest family member. So, the closest unmarried family member has to marry her, help her give birth to a son, and then that son becomes the dead husband's child. So, I have 3 brothers. I'm the second of 4. I have 1 unmarried brother. According to this rule, if I died and I left my wife with no kids, my older brother would have to marry her, help her have a child, right? We don't need to go into the details of that unless somebody wants to explain that process to me. Yeah, I'd rather you didn't anyways. So then they have a child together, but that child is counted as mine. It gives worth to the widow, right? We're not going to like that this is the case, but it's a way of giving worth and provision to the widow, sanctifying something that is otherwise a low status person. All right, it's giving value to, and I would love if you wrote this down, giving value to somebody who is otherwise low status. So Ruth in this story, according to our historical critical method, our textual analysis stuff, Ruth acts like this for King David. All right, so Ruth becomes kinsman redeemer. Ruth is redeemer for all Moabites. All Moabites. By Ruth remarrying an Israelite, a faithful Israelite, and acting faithful, she redeems and sanctifies, makes worthy all of Moab. So she makes worthy everybody of Moabite heritage. So now, guess what politically is allowed to happen? David can be king. Otherwise, if this didn't happen and his great-grandmother didn't become a true Israelite and didn't get brought in, David, who hangs out with Moabites, who seems to be a Moabite, would not be allowed to be there. So this is why we would argue this is a political text. All right, it's a little confusing. I would love to go into this longer if I had time, but I don't. Now, we're going to go into our theological analysis. Again, you could have both of these in place.
Hey, boy.
Care for the lowest status.
Bro.
All right.
You would have been
The theological analysis. This book is going to say the goal of the story. So rather than the goal of the story being political in nature, the goal of the story is to show God's provision or providing, his care for the lowest status, and God's desire for social justice. Yeah.
What is that provision?
Provision. All right, provision means providing, giving of resources, care. All right, provision and care for the lowest status. God's desire for social justice. We look at a God here that has created laws that will help the lowest status people. Ruth is not only a widow, she's a foreigner. She's a foreign widow. And God finds her to be so important to this story. She is the chief importance of this story. She is the focus of this story. There's nobody more important than Ruth in this story, especially in this theological analysis. This one might care about David. This one cares about Ruth and God's provision. It cares about God's social justice. It's a theological text about God and what he desires for us, rather than about King David and his political alliances. Now, both of these could be true at the same time, but you have to decide which one's prioritized. All right, what we're going to do now, we're slightly behind, sorry, but we're going to go ahead and listen to the entire book of Ruth read out loud. You need to stand up, open to Ruth, and then you have the remaining class time to get to work. So we're about 2 to 3 minutes behind. I'm going to put it on 1.25 speed. So open the book of Ruth and read along, please.